Hello, my name is Sarah Cookton, and I'm a graduate student getting my master's in technical communications at Minnesota State University, Mankato. And my final capstone project is on how Facebook memorial pages are changing the way Western culture communicates about death. At a traditional funeral, relatives and friends would gather, pictures of the deceased would be displayed, and a person could go out of their way to find further grief support groups. There was also the notion that once a person died, others had about a year to get over the death. However, most psychologists believe in continuing bonds theory, which states that a relationship continues even if someone dies. The relationship just alters a bit. Psychologists have also coined the term social death, which refers to a living person losing their personality or identity, such as with Alzheimer's disease. Now, we have social media accounts that live on after death. Their living can be explained by applying actor network theory, which means a social media account, such as a Facebook page, has just as much agency and authority as any human person in the network because the account spreads information and helps facilitate activities. For instance, Facebook users can write on a deceased person's wall, so they can spread information through the account even if the account holder is gone. Liza Potts used actor network theory to explain how social media accounts kept the public notified and out of danger during the 2005 London bombings. Modern rhetoricians have taken to studying other social media accounts, from the president's tweets to Black Lives Matter movement. Additionally, these social media accounts also hold their creator's identity, which further complicates matters when someone dies. Arguably, out of all the social media outlets, a person's identity is most wrapped up in Facebook. Facebook was founded in 2004 by Mark Zuckerberg when he was in Harvard, and it quickly spread to other Ivy League schools and then the general public. They created memorial pages in 2009 to handle all the accounts from their deceased users. As of April 2017, 1 in 7 people in the world have a Facebook account, which is 1.86 billion people. So where do Facebook accounts go postmortem? Currently, all social media accounts are live and in limbo after their owner dies. But to get a Facebook account memorialized, a person would have to contact Facebook headquarters, prove they are a close friend or relative of the deceased, and then scan the deceased person's certificate. However, a living person could also choose a legacy contact before they die. This legacy contact will get a Facebook message asking if they'd agree to become the memorial page administrator after their friend dies. Or the living person could also request that their account be deleted upon their death. Currently, anyone can make a memorial page for anyone or anything, including a pet or an author that died a long time ago, like Shakespeare. There are also regular people who want to create memorial pages for their friends who died decades ago, who never would have had a Facebook account. However, not turning someone's account into a memorial page means that their info pops up asking people to friend them, wish them a happy birthday, and other awkward situations. So this is what a memorial page looks like as of April 2017. The Facebook profile stays intact and the word remembering appears by the picture, but the account is otherwise frozen. So this means that the pictures from before and the wall posts stay intact. There's an administrator, also known as the legacy contact, for the memorial page who has the ability to pin a message at the top of the page, update the profile picture and cover photo, respond to new friend requests, and delete new posts on the wall. They don't have access to the deceased person's private messages or the ability to alter any previous photos or posts that were on the wall before the person died, and they can't remove past friends. After a person dies, all of their friends become members of this new memorial page group. Here's a larger view of a 2017 Facebook memorial page, and we can see the wall post area right here. Because our Facebook identity lives on, a few interesting things happen. Almost anyone with an active account will need someone to tend it after they die. This was likened to how a person would tend a garden or a grave. Administrators can also post content on the wall if they think interest is waning or if some of the posts are negative. And since all the original Facebook friends can post on the wall, group members create a new identity and memoir for the deceased through their comments. And this can be good, bad, or sometimes out of control. the most interesting to think about is that a memorial page dies only when the last friend leaves it. So, when we think about demographics, who even have memorial pages? It was found a few years ago that there were 3 times as many memorial pages for young white men than any other age group. These men typically died violent, sudden deaths, and their accounts were administered by women. So that could point to either there is a disproportionate number of white men who died violent deaths, or that women were just more applicable to create these memorial pages for them. However, since the demographics of people who have Facebook are shifting, the demographics of memorial pages will also change. For instance, new groups like teenagers are getting Facebook memorial pages when they die. Some counseling programs are starting to implement it in high schools. And since elderly people are getting Facebook accounts, it stands to reason that they will also get memorial pages soon. Celebrities and anyone who had a high profile death are more likely to get a public memorial page made for them. And since before 2017, a memorial page would wipe out someone's wall posts and pictures, a lot of accounts were never converted over, so there are still a lot of just zombie accounts out there lingering that were never made into memorial pages. Rhetoricians and psychologists are studying wall posts on memorial pages, and here are some of their findings. Messages directly to the deceased outnumbered all other messages 2-1. The living people were writing in present tense to the deceased, updating them about their lives. This supports continuing bonds theory, which again refers to a relationship evolving after death rather than ending abruptly. This is also something nearly all psychologists agree on, but most Westerners have a hard time grasping. Wall posts were also used to spread information like funeral times and announcements and awareness messages, like if someone had died from a suicide. There was typically a spike in activity the first month after the death, and then it began to taper off. And about 10% of someone's Facebook friends would post something, and 90% would remain quiet. Rhetoricians and psychologists also looked at power dynamics on the wall posts. And in this specific situation, they talked about context collapse, which is when audiences with different power dynamics to each other mesh into one space on an equal level. So in this case, it would be the Facebook user's boss, sister, casual acquaintance, friend from high school. They would all be on the same level when they're in this memorial page. And by studying the wall posts, it was found that the people with the most power were the ones that knew the deceased the best. So that made it so that group members were trying to prove that they knew the deceased better than another. So they were trying to one-up each other. And some people were trying to just get attention from themselves, known as bandwagon mourners. And those people were usually called out, but if someone close to the deceased said that their comments were okay, then no one questioned the comments because they left the family member alone. So a hierarchy of legitimacy was coined, and here we see that the close family members have the highest power, followed by friends, then acquaintances, then strangers, or even worse, trolls, who are people who would create fake accounts and join these groups. Many of the scholars I studied divided the situation around Facebook memorial pages into either negative or positive experiences. Some of the negative experiences were that Facebook memorial page administrators controlled everything and had too much power. They had power over who could become new friends of the memorial page, who posted things like pictures, and they could delete comments. Or even worse, they could not be monitoring everything, and then the comments could be negative and get out of control, and no one else would be able to delete them. Another negative experience was that death was depersonalized when it was sandwiched between memes and people talking about their vacation. Another negative experience was that they found some people relied too heavily on the memorial page group for support, so that when the memorial page group disappeared for whatever reason, they said it felt like a second death. They could also be sad when after a month the traffic on a memorial page typically wanes because they felt like their loved one wasn't getting the respect they deserved. And some new terms are mourning sickness and grief porn. These are grief tourists who visit memorial pages because seeing other people's pain makes them feel better about their own lives. And this could happen in varying degrees. DeGroot found that most grief tourists who left messages that were negative were women, and most times they were casual acquaintances of the deceased, or they may not have known them at all. And she likened their rhetoric to a graveside brawl or road rage. Probably the worst aspect of Facebook memorial pages are trolls. Trolls are people who create fake Facebook accounts and, in this case, joined public memorial groups to heckle the dead person or members of the group. Ethnography graduate student Whitney Phillips went undercover in the trolling community in 2010 and 2011 to decipher the norms of their subculture. She found that trolls were mostly men who felt bored, although she felt that some were clinically antisocial. She found out later, after she outed herself and was interviewing them in person, that some of the trolls felt like vigilantes against the mourning sickness and grief porn people who were joining these groups and didn't know the deceased at all, but they were joining to get attention to themselves. She found that when a troll's account was deleted, they would recreate another account with a similar name. So they were able to establish a community where they all recognized each other, or at least they recognized their fake names, even if they didn't really have an idea of who their real identities were. And she found that some trolls hijacked deceased Facebook identities onto porn sites, created memes, and then they put those pictures back into the memorial groups, which caused a lot of problems. She coined the term trollercast, which is when hundreds of accounts were deleted and recreated, such as in a high-profile death, like for a celebrity or something. And this eventually led to different online laws per country. So now Facebook has different algorithms where they can catch trolls more quickly and more efficiently, but they still exist. And Phillips was actually able to predict which country a troll was from just from looking at the rhetoric of their wall posts because of these different online laws. So, for instance, the US has very lax laws, and so she found that the trolls were sort of easing in with their dialogue and would have conversations with people before they became pretty mean. But in Australia, where the laws are really severe for posting online pornography, for instance, or bad messages, she found that there were less trolls overall from Australia, but the ones that were there were very aggressive, and she suspected that it was because they had so much to lose that they might as well go all in. However, there are still positive experiences with Facebook memorial pages. Since group members were so candid and sincere in their wall posts, the rhetoric was likened to diary entries. And other group members felt like they weren't suffering alone, so there was automatically a grief support group. This was especially beneficial for isolated people. And although there are bandwagon mourners and grief tourists, DeGroot found that many strangers wrote positive messages to the family members in mourning. She called this group emotional rubberneckers, and she felt they might be trying to cope with the death of their own. And lastly, it was found that most people do not defriend someone just because they died, which points to a bond with a deceased person and the Facebook group they're linked in with. Thank you for listening to my presentation on Facebook memorial pages and how they've changed the way Western culture communicates about death. Since the demographics of these pages are evolving and the Facebook accounts aren't going anywhere after a person dies, I think there's a lot more room for studying the rhetoric on these wall posts. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me through Minnesota State University Mankato's library. Thank you.